Right, good day, everybody. Steve Prziborowski here. Welcome to episode 35 of Reach for the Firefighter Badge. Episode 35 is going to discuss fire service resume preparation. So let's get into resumes and how you can have the best possible resume when you prepare for the position of firefighter. Right, as a reminder, my two websites, code3firetraining.com, has a lot of great officer development and promotional preparation information on there. And then my entry-level website that I run for Chabot College's fire technology program, chabotfire.com, has also a lot of great free stuff on there. Lots of stuff to keep you busy for hours and days to help you be the best you can be. And as a reminder, these webinars are based on two of the three books I've had published, the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, as well as Reach for the Firefighter Badge. Now, resume basics. I ask this question a lot when I'm with the students at the college and anyone I'm working with for a promotional process. You know, I think a lot of people maybe are confused sometimes. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. I ask the question, what's the difference between the job application and the resume? Because pretty much to get a job or a promotion, you have to fill out an application. Sometimes you're required to submit a resume, sometimes you're not. But it's always good practice to have a resume available. But the main difference between the application and the resume is simple. They tell you what to put in the application, meaning they give you this, you know, whether it's hard copy or whether it's on the computer, they give you a thing with a bunch of boxes and you got to fill them out. They're very specific. They may not give you room to add more stuff. Whereas on a resume starts with a blank piece of paper. And it's really up to you to fill out the information. So the nice part is the resume can be whatever you want on there, whereas the job application may say list every job you've ever held, or maybe list every job you've had in the last 10 years. Let's say you've had like 10 jobs in the last 10 years. Okay, that's a lot to fill in the application, which is true, okay. But for the resume, well, do I have to list all 10? No, you can, but keep it to one page. I'm gonna hit on that all the time. One-page resumes is all you need for firefighter or engineer. When I went for the captain's test, I was already in the job 5 years, one page for the captain's test. And it worked. I got 100% in the oral interview, and the panel afterwards said they loved the one page for captain versus the 2, 3, 4 pages that were boring the crap out of everybody. None of us have, myself included, that much that needs more than one page for entry-level firefighter. Don't take that personal. But the nice part is the resume, you can put on there what you want. So yeah, you had 10 jobs maybe. Maybe only put your current job and maybe a couple others. They're going to ask on the application for every college you've ever attended. Okay, maybe you went to 4 different schools, you're gonna have to list those. What do you put in the resume? 1, 2, all of them, it all depends. I mean, I think it really comes down to how much real estate you need to fill. The more white space, or if it's a colored paper for the resume when you print it out, but here's my point, the more white space, the better, because it's easier to see things. Because if you don't want a whole resume that's just one whole page of text, that's the same font, same style, it's hard to read and pick out things. So you put what you feel is appropriate in the resume. There's a lot of great resources on the internet. There's some books, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to figure out a lot of stuff. How many pages should a resume be? A lot of people ask me that question. I just shared it. 1 page for firefighter, 1 page for engineer, 1 for captain. Now, when I went for battalion chief, that's when I decided, you know what, I've got so much on my resume, I'm going to go for 2 pages. And 2 pages is fine for a battalion chief position. When I put my name in the hat for assistant chief, fire chief, then I went to 3 pages because I had a lot more information. But the problem when you have multiple pages, because you may go, well, Steve, I don't care what you say. That's cool. You're not me and I'm not you. But here's the point. 1 page is nice because if you've ever been on an oral board or to an oral board as a candidate or a rater, you know what I'm talking about. There's not a lot of space at the table. The oral board rater doesn't have a lot of space around them, so they've probably got maybe your application, maybe not, maybe a resume, maybe not. Obviously something to write on, give you scoring and take notes on, some questions to ask you, maybe their favorite drink in front of them as well too, and they don't have a lot of room. So here's the thing, if they have a 1-page resume, they can just glance at it, versus if it's 2 pages or more, then they're flipping it over or they're rummaging back and forth. And if they're doing this or doing this, what are they not doing? You got an awesome resume and they love checking it out, but what are they not doing? They're not hearing what you're saying. And the oral board raters are typically taught, it doesn't matter if it's on here. It only matters if it comes out of your mouth, meaning don't give points to what is just written down. Only give points to what they say. So you can have all this awesome stuff on your resume, but you're not going to get points if you don't say it. So that's why it doesn't matter what's on here. Make sure you cover all your key points when you're talking during your oral interview. So I'm a fan of one-page resumes just because they're short and easy. And I mentioned a number of departments don't allow the raters to have your application or your resume in front of you, in front of them. It's just the questions and basically the answer sheet and the pad of paper. And there's pros and there's cons to that. But it shouldn't matter for you, the candidate, because you as the candidate, whether or not they have your application or resume doesn't matter, because you still need to sell yourself. Your sales pitch, and we'll talk about oral interviews in future episodes, your sales pitch, your marketing pitch, your commitment that you're providing to them is what your score is typically 100% made up of. We don't hire resumes, we hire people. So know yourself inside and out. Whether or not they have it shouldn't matter. Why need a resume? Well, sometimes departments say, please submit a resume. So there's a no-brainer, you need a resume. But they may not always say that. Sometimes they may say you may submit, you can submit, not shall. But I always encourage candidates, as long as they don't tell you specifically, don't send a resume in, it's good to have a one-page resume ready to go. So when you do that online application, be ready to attach a resume. I think it's good. And be very careful about attaching a Word document. And I say that because Microsoft Word, for whatever reason, it may look good on your computer. I've had this happen where it looks good on one computer, but then like I send it to my, from my laptop to my desktop, and sometimes the things change a little bit. It's like, wait, that's not how it looked over there. Whereas if you PDF the document, and if you use Mac computers, Apple computers, you can easily PDF from the print function, which is an awesome free feature. But anyway, PDF usually translates no matter where, whereas Word can sometimes get a little, cattywampus. So when you submit your application, I always am a fan of submitting a resume. Then usually you submit your application today, your oral interview, if you get that far, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road or longer. I'm a fan of bringing resumes to the oral interview. Again, make sure you read the paperwork they send you, because some departments say do not bring anything with you except maybe a bottle of water. Some departments say no resumes, but some say you may bring a resume. So I'm always a fan of when you bring that resume, especially when you walk in the room, it better be an updated resume, because there's nothing worse than, after you shake hands with everybody as you walk in. Well, that may change given the coronavirus pandemic. We'll see how that goes in the future about shaking hands. Maybe it's just virtual, air fist bumps there, or hey, what's up? I don't know what. It's going to be very interesting. But old school, we shook hands with the Raiders. Hopefully we can go back to that one day. We'll see. But anyway, when you get in the room, obviously you got that smile on your face, and obviously you're let in and told, hey, Steve, there's your seat right there and across the table from the Raiders. At that point, they're there to try their best to help you be successful. I mean, they're not there to see you fail. Trust me, none of us want to see you fail. We want to see you succeed. So we try our best usually to have a smile, show you some warmth, and be able to be welcoming. But again, a resume is nice that once you give your greeting to everybody, right before you sit down and they start asking you the battery of questions, hey, is it possible if I can give you a resume? And normally I would say updated resume, but here I'll say why. I would normally say, can I give you an updated resume? And make sure you bring probably 7 copies, because I've seen interview panels that have had up to 7 people on it, and it's embarrassing to have like 3 copies. And can you 2 maybe share this one? Can you 3 maybe share this one? You 2 share that one? Oh man, that was major screw up right there. That's unprofessional. And just at that point, you should have said, crap. Lesson learned, bring 7 copies. I mean, again, rarely do you have more than 4 candidates, 4 raters, but I've seen up to 7. So have up to 7 resumes. But anyway, if I'm an oral rater and a candidate gives me a resume, and especially if I already have a resume, the first question out of my mouth is going to be, well, hey, Steve, I appreciate the resume, but I've already got one here, that the one you submitted 3 months ago or 4 months ago with your application. And this is a leading question. This is part of the test here. Bear with me. Many candidates don't get that. And then, then of course, the good answer from the candidate would be, well, I'm glad you brought that up. Since the time that I submitted that original resume, 3 months, 4 months ago, I've actually completed my degree, or I finished my EMT, or I've enrolled in a paramedic program, or I've enrolled in EMT school, or I've added 200 hours of volunteer experience to my resume. So that one that you see on your desk there, that was 4 months ago. I've done a lot since then. I want to make sure that you're all aware of that. Boom, nailed it. Versus what happens to a lot of candidates when they have submitted that. So why are we getting an extra resume here? You already submitted one 4 or 5 or even longer, 8 months ago. And of course, those candidates that are like, oh, well, so you're saying it's the same resume? Yeah. So you're saying that you haven't done anything in the last 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 months or whatever since you submitted that? How bad do you want this career? If you want this career, you're updating that resume on a once-a-month basis. You're moving things around, adding things, deleting things, tweaking things. Yeah. So that's why I think you can score some bonus points if you say, hey, you know, I've done a lot in the last 4 months since I initially submitted this. Again, it doesn't guarantee you the job because we don't hire resumes, but we're also hiring people, not just great character traits, great people skills, but a lot of motivation as well too. We want good, solid people that are trainable and ready to go. You know, question asked, can we submit a resume when we submit our application? Again, read the fine print. Most departments allow it, but just make sure you read the fine print. Again, I suggest PDF because it's easily translatable. You know, I touched on, can we bring a resume to the interview? Again, read the fine print. When in doubt, here's the thing, I guess, you can do it one of 2 ways. If they don't say anything and they go silent on it in the announcement, cool. Then bring some in a, you know, portfolio or whatever you bring it in. I know there's some people that say, well, you should ask at the front desk, because basically what happens during an interview is you park your vehicle or you get it dropped off by whoever. You walk in and usually you walk up to the front counter and you say, hey, I'm Steve. I'm here for my interview at, you know, whatever time today. I'm a little bit early. What do I need? Basically, what do I need to do? And that person at the front counter will usually check you in and say, okay, well, hey, stand by, we're running a little bit late right now, but someone will be coming out here shortly to walk you in and give you an overview of the process. If you need to use the restroom, it's right over there, blah, blah. And it's usually the way it is until someone, usually the proctor, which is maybe a chief officer, maybe someone from the human resources department, walks out. They're not a rater, they're just that proctor there during the interview panel to make sure things go on time, make sure the interview panel is asking the appropriate questions, nothing illegal, nothing discriminatory, just sticking to the script. And that proctor, which sometimes in our department as the deputy chief, I serve as a proctor. Sometimes, like I said, our HR staff does as well too. I mean, sometimes we have multiple different panels going on, so we need multiple people. But anyway, that proctor is the one that walks out and says, hey, how you doing? I'm Steve Prziborowski, deputy chief. Pleasure to meet you. And your name is? Oh, I am, you know, so Lisa Smith. Well, hi, Lisa. Nice to meet you. Welcome here. Here's how the process works here. You know, I'm going to walk into the room there. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself to each of the raters. Then at that point, you'll see where you're supposed to sit. We'll ask you 10 questions over 35 minutes. At 35 minutes, we will cut you off kindly, nicely, respectfully, of course, but I'll also give you a time prompt if you're running maybe too slow. So don't take it personal. I'll try to help you out there. And then again, don't hesitate to ask about time. We'll help you out there. Any questions of us? You know, as the proctor, I'm there to loosen you up and getting you ready to go there. It's almost like a prize fighter, warming up the prize fighter, because I want you to get in there and be the best you can be, because it's stressful. But anyway, that may be the time to ask, well, Chief, can I bring a resume to the panel? Because maybe I ask you the question, did you bring any resumes? Did you want to, you know, give to the panel? Please give those. Here's the point. If you have resumes, if you're going to give them out, make sure you give them out right at the beginning of the panel, because here's the problem. It's nice for the panel to glance at the resume during your interview. I mean, again, you don't want them focused on it because they're not listening to you and focusing on you as they should be. But when you're ready to walk out the room after you say your goodbyes, that's not to say, oh, by the way, I forgot, can I give you guys some resumes? Yeah, you can, but really at this point, they're useless, because all we're going to do is probably put them in the shredder afterward, because we don't have time to review them now because the next candidate's already outside and we may be running late, and we're going to take probably 5-10 minutes just to grade you. And then we got to maybe quickly run to the restroom and then the next candidate. So if you're going to give it out in the beginning and maybe ask the question of the proctor when they greet you, or at least when you walk in the room there, because the last thing you want to do is right before you're sitting down is, oh, here, shove it in people's faces. Polite, you know, professional, mature. I apologize for not asking earlier, but is it possible I can provide some updated resume? And if they're not updated, don't even bother, because you don't show like you're that prepared. Some other basics on resume. What should be on a resume? I'm a pretty simple resume guy. Make sure you got your contact information on top. I see a lot of resumes that just have a name, but no street address, no phone number, no email address. And it's like, What happens if that resume gets separated from your application? Or let's say there's two people with the same name, always possible. So I think the key is it doesn't hurt to have your address on there. And again, I talked earlier in episode 34 about having a professional email address. So making sure that, like Steve.Prziborowski at whatever, something professional on there. I'm a fan of putting an objective right below the contact information. Objective, to become a firefighter for the Fremont Fire Department. Simple one line, but show some love for that department. And then if you're testing, say with Hayward, next week, to become a firefighter for the Hayward Fire Department or the City of Hayward Fire Department or however. It's nice to personalize a resume just to show some love and show that you're not just giving out the same resume everywhere. Now, as for what goes after objective, it can be anything. It may be experience, it may be education, training, certifications, it may be community service, it may be special skills. I don't think there's any right way of what goes below the objective. Obviously, usually your name goes to the top. Now, there's a lot of ways to do resumes, and I know you can go to like Microsoft Word and there's a resume template, and you can probably find hundreds of resumes. That's not a bad thing to do, but here's a suggestion. If you're going to use one of those standard templates, please don't use the first one, because it seems like most people, and it shows no creativity, use the exact same, whenever the page pops up, they usually click on the first one, use that. And again, if you're the first person that's using it, okay. Again, it looks boring, but again, we're not hiring you because of your resume. But then you see the fifth person that all uses the same style, it just doesn't bode well for you. So personally, any one of us as a firefighter should have very good Microsoft Word skills. Now I say Microsoft Word because, well, there's other Word programs out there like WordPerfect and others. Yeah, there are, but Microsoft Word is probably the most commonly used in fire departments, governmental agencies, home offices. So I know they're sort of similar, but somewhat different. You need to be familiar with Word. It's just the way it is. Word, Excel, and even PowerPoint. Steve, I'm not a computer analyst or IT specialist. I'm a firefighter. Yeah, but that's part of our job today in today's world, is being able to use those basic office suite items. Okay, back to this though. You should be able to take a blank piece of paper on a Word document and create your own resume. And if you can't do that, find someone that can help you. And even again, you don't even have to find someone. There's a lot of YouTube videos that'll teach you how to learn Microsoft Word or Excel or any of those for free. A lot of great stuff out there if you do some Google searching. But anyway, you don't need to have a lot of sections. I mean, I'm a fan of like experience, and with your experience, that's pretty much your jobs. It could be volunteer time, but primarily your employment. I'm not a fan of putting duties on there. Remember, application is what they want, resume is what you want. Application lists all your duties, but to me, the duties are the note. Duh. Think about it. When people put duties of a ambulance EMT for, AMR, I transport patients, I respond to calls, I provide customer service, I run 911 calls, I clean the ambulance, blah, blah. You know what, if you tell me you're an EMT for AMR or whatever company, I think most of us have a clue. So you know what, duties are wasting real estate. That's the stuff you're paid for. Instead of duties, that's why I say put something like significant accomplishments, not the stuff you're paid for. What have you done to be better? Well, I just work at McDonald's flipping burgers. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But what are you doing at McDonald's? Oh, I'm doing nothing because I'm just buying my time to become a firefighter. Okay. You know what? If you're that if there's no motivation or inspiration now at McDonald's, it's probably going to be the same you when you get hired on the job, and you're probably going to be a slug as you are now at McDonald's, versus the passionate person at McDonald's that's enthusiastic and doing everything they can. You're like, good Lord, give me 25 of these individuals. They rock. They're getting paid minimum wage. They're taking crap from everybody. And you know what? They still got a smile on their face. They're still happy and they're sincere about it. That's the people we need in the fire service and governmental work in general. But anyway, to me, and nothing says you even have to list significant accomplishments. Let's say you had 7 jobs or 6 jobs, all that were valuable and all that showed progression. Maybe you just don't, maybe all you're doing is listing just the job, the city and the state, but you're not listing duties or significant accomplishments, because again, the real estate on that resume of 1 page goes quick. It doesn't go quick when you're first starting out, because you're like, holy crap, I got a lot of real estate to fill here. Yeah, I get it. I've been there, done that. It feels very weird. But then after a while, once you're at it for a while, you'll have things to put on there. Regarding education, training, and certifications, are you having any there's formal education? Maybe you're working on a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or you have yours, that's where it goes. Training and certifications, maybe EMT, CPR. Do you need to put your high school diploma? No, please don't list your high school diploma, because it's going to show your age. And you know what? You had to have it to apply, so why waste the real estate? don't put it on there. You know, training certifications are good. And some people say, well, I've got like a whole page of certifications because I've been going to class all my life and I got all these fire and EMS related stuff. If you give us a page of certifications, you're going to put us to sleep. One page resume, you're going to, you know, stick to the most important certifications. You know, I think the highest priority ones, the EMT, the paramedic, the CPR, the stuff that may be required to apply and or highly desirable or desirable. Community service, that's sort of volunteer stuff. So anything volunteer wise, and you may go, man, I haven't got any volunteer time. Get some, find some, make it happen. Because you want to be a civil servant and serve the community and serve your fellow human beings. As a firefighter, for example, you better demonstrate a good track record of volunteer work. And don't tell me you don't have time for volunteer work. You can't tell me you can't find 1 hour a month, or maybe 1 hour every couple of weeks, or maybe something to do online. Maybe there's something online you can do to help people, mentor people, train people, connect with people, do something. Because we're all talented in something. How do we give back? Like I'm giving back right now by doing these free of charge on the weekends and, you know, in the evenings when I'm not working. You know, special skills. This is a good area. Maybe if you're bilingual, maybe if you have certain computer skills. That's about it. Notice that I did not list hobbies. Personally, you're not getting hired for your hobbies. And I've heard people, well, I'm going to put my hobbies because, and in her hobbies, I'm going to put that I'm a great softball player because the fire department has a softball team and I'd love to play on the softball team. Okay, so the fire department has 100 firefighters on the job. Do you think all of them play softball? No. Do all of them like softball? No. There's probably a core group of individuals, the softball zealots that just love that stuff, which is awesome because I like baseball, softball. And there's also some of them that go, oh my God, those softball guys just drive me crazy. I mean, typical sport banter between each sport and everything else. So hobbies, you putting softball, well, you got 2, 3, or 4 oral board raters typically in front of you. What are the odds all of them love softball? Let's say maybe 3 of the 4 hate softball. And you're shoving softball down your throat because it's on your resume. Yeah, I could be part of your softball team. I was all champion in high school and collegiate and blah, blah. And the oral board's like, we're hiring you as a firefighter. We're not hiring you for a softball player. Not to say you can't have good teamwork skills or other skills you learn, but again, hobbies you're not getting hired for. And some of the hobbies I've seen are actually pretty, not that maybe smart to put in your resume. You know, cage fighting is my hobby. Okay, bungee jumping. Ooh, you're a high risk type of person. Yeah, we take risks as firefighters. Yeah, we risk our lives to save other lives. But you know what? You're cage fighting. You're sitting there doing all this Evel Knievel stuff. You're not workers' comp nightmare waiting to happen in some departments. And it's like, and you go around the country and every department can probably tell you a story about certain individuals that off-duty stuff that sometimes got them hurt. And it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with doing off-duty stuff. I mean, have at it off-duty, but the problem is typically if you get injured on the job, there's usually sick leave that's related to it. But if you're injured off the job, like say a motorcycle accident, and when you get hired, you don't have a lot of sick leave. You build up sick leave as your career goes and you don't use it. I mean, it's there for you when you need it, but obviously you build it up as time goes by. So, you know, save that stuff for maybe when you're off probation, you've been on the job and you have a lot of sick leave built up. But again, you don't want to come in shoving that down the oral board's throats. Just something else you don't see on here is references available upon request. No shit, Sherlock, anything's available upon request. To me, don't waste the space. And the oral board that's the first level oral board, they don't care about your references anyway. They're not going to call them. They're just grading you for the 8 to 30 minutes you're in the room on the questions they ask you. That's it. And the problem with listing references is if you're listing names on there that you think are great references, well, they may be great in your eyes, but not in the rater's eyes. We all know those individuals, friends, family members that we love dearly and think the world of, but then does that mean everybody thinks the world of and thinks dearly of? No, for everyone that loves someone, there's probably someone that doesn't like you or doesn't think you're as great as you think you are. It's just human nature. So oral boards are taught, don't discriminate, don't be biased, but don't give them ammunition either. What should not be on a resume? Don't put pictures. I've seen pictures of my family, myself, just don't put pictures on there. That's just me. But again, that's just me. There's probably many people out there that put pictures and that, hey, I got hired, I had a picture of my resume. You know what? I've asked some oral boards, like, pictures? I mean, you know what? Again, It doesn't mean that you can't get hired, won't get hired, because again, an oral board is looking at you not because of what's on your resume. Again, they're grading you based on what you say and what they believe your potential is based on what you say in your answers to the questions. But I'm just suggesting no distractions, no paragraphs of text. If you look at a typical fiction book, it's typically written with just lots of text with very little white space, just white space usually around the edges, maybe a white space in between the paragraphs, but mostly text. Text is hard to pick out key points. It's hard to see things. I mean, it's hard to read a book and stay focused. So on your resume, again, you want things to pop out, to be very easy, because the oral interview panel may only have 30 seconds or less to check your resume out, maybe a minute max. So I talked about don't put names of others. Your name should be the only one on that resume. Well, my supervisor's name is John Smith. Right, your supervisor's name goes on the application for your current employer, but not in the resume. You know, I talked about hobbies. I talked about references available upon request. Again, that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I know many people that have probably got hired putting that stuff on there. But again, their salespersonship on their interview was awesome. They had a chance to connect with the panel. Again, we're not going to hold it against you if you have that on your resume, because we're not hiring the resume. We're hiring the person. But don't try to set yourself up for success as much as possible. More on what should not be on a resume. To me, abbreviations, the only abbreviations on your resume should be a state abbreviation like CA for California, AZ for Arizona, uppercase, EMT or CPR. Why? Because think about it. There's probably not a person in this world that doesn't understand what CA stands for. Well, it could be Canada, but especially if you're in California, or AZ or FL for Florida. EMT is extremely common, I would like to think, as well as CPR. So those are usually common abbreviations. The problem is if you start listing other abbreviations on there, then you got the oral board sometimes wondering, and they may ask you, hey, what does TWC mean on your resume? And you better have it. Or they may just not ask you because maybe they're told don't ask questions off the resume, which sometimes is the case, or don't ask questions off the application. And then they're just wondering, oh, what the heck? There's all these abbreviations. I have no clue what they're talking about. Clear text. Don't assume everyone on the other side understands your abbreviation, because they may or may not be firefighters. It could be a civilian, maybe from the community, that's grading you. Or even if it is a firefighter, don't think one firefighter knows every abbreviation out there, because I learn new abbreviations every day sometimes. Don't put everything on your resume that you've ever done. You don't, again, one page, short and sweet. You're going to leave things off, move on, get over it. Be able to discuss it, though, coming out of your mouth. That's the key, is being able to sell it. Be very careful for spelling errors, because studies have shown that probably half the resumes out there have spelling or grammatical errors. So make sure that you do spell check. Spell check doesn't always catch everything, so have somebody else maybe critique it. Also, studies show that resumes have a good chance of having lies or falsifications on them as well too. And you go, what? People lie in resumes? Oh yeah, so your application better match your resume. When you're doing your resume, it better match the application. And I'll give a good example of matching. Let's say on one of your jobs, you listed that you were employed by whatever supermarket. Let's say your employment ended on September 30th. So you ended your employment September 30th, 2019, September 30th. But then on your resume, you put the employment ended 10/1. So 9/30 and 10/1 are one day apart, September 30th, October 1st. They're two different months though. But those are little stupid little things that come back to bite you, because you put on your application 9/30, but then you put 10/1, or you just put 10 for October with no date, or you put 9/19 for September 19. Well, sometimes the oral board is allowed to ask you questions for clarification based on what's written down that you put on your resume or application, or what you say. They may ask you, wait a second, on here, on your application, it says September 30th, but on your resume, it says October 1st. What is it? And I've seen candidates get really unraveled at the point, because now they're starting to stress over, oh my God, what are they asking me that dumb question for? And we're not asking us dumb questions we're not trying to be jerks. We're trying to get the facts. So which is it? And then what usually happens is candidates go, what? Well, oh, I didn't even catch that. Well, yeah, that shows me now you're unprofessional. You don't have an attention to detail. Both things that are key for firefighters: professionalism as well as attention to detail. Oh my God. Or, well, it was September 30th. Well, I'm not sure. Now you're not sure? You got to know this stuff, So again, it just puts you down a path that you may, or a hole you may have trouble digging out of. So make sure you fact check both of everything fine, to make sure the resume application and what you say out of your mouth are all the same, and make sure they're accurate too. Because trust me, there'll be questions asked. Another thing that I see sometimes is degrees. A lot of times candidates will put like Associate of Arts degree in fire technology at Mission College, Santa Clara, California, and then they'll put, you know, they'll put Associate of Arts degree or Associate of Science degree. Then they have in their 2019 to present. So how can you have a degree if you're there still, meaning present? So 2019 to present, plus it takes usually about 2 years to get a degree. And I see some things like that and I go, I mean, it'd be one thing if they said 2017 to 2019, meaning they're already done, they have a degree, I'm not going to question it. But when they say they have a degree, but it's still to, 2019 to present or to current, whatever term you use, then the BS flag is like, okay, how do you have a degree when you're still there and you're also only been there for like a year? And then usually what the candidate says, well, I'm working on my degree. I've got like 7 classes left. Then why did you put Associate of Science degree? You should have put major fire technology, working towards Associate of Science degree, expected completion or expected graduation fall of whatever, 2020. That shows you have goals and objectives and you're not trying to BS us. But again, I see a lot of candidates do that. They'll put like in big words, Associate of Arts, then sometimes small pending or working toward degree. It's like, don't try to BS us. Don't worry about it. It's going to dig you a hole you can't get out of. I talked about earlier, don't list your high school stuff because again, we don't care because you're typically over 18 out of high school anyway, and it can show your age. I've talked about creating with Microsoft Word. It's an awesome opportunity to get you more comfortable with Word, as you should be as a firefighter. You know, it should be updated ideally at least once a month. I mean, try to look at as many resumes as you can. On Chabot Fire, I've got a lot of, under the free stuff links, some sample resumes, a lot of resume preparation information. There is no run right style or right way. You're not me, I'm not you, but look at as many as you can to see, I like that or I don't like that, or ask others. For font size or size of text, I would say no more than 12. I mean, sometimes your name can be like 14 or 16, but no need to have your name size 24. I got to fill in the line, Steve. I don't have a lot below it. Well, yeah, I know, but, and anything smaller than 11, like 10 or 9 or 8 is hard to read because a lot of people on oral boards, like myself included, I resemble that remark, wear glasses. Not to say I can see any better. It seems to get worse every year, but don't make it so I'm having to look at the sheet here. 11, 12 at the most, 11 at the smallest. Alternating besides styles of text. I mentioned earlier, don't just have the same style all the way down because it's boring. It's hard to pick things out. If you can have a resume that lets things pop or stand out, do it. I mean, here's some examples. You know, some things bold, some things non-bold, some things uppercase and bold, some things maybe sentence or title case and bold, italics bold. But I didn't italicize. I should have italicized it. My bad. Italics non-bold. I should have italicized that as well for show, but I didn't. But imagine those were italicized. Underline uppercase and bold. Underline sentence case and bold. Underline sentence case no bold. Underline italics bold. Underline non-bold italics underline. Ugh, that's a tongue twister. Again, don't have the same style all the way through, just like don't use bullets all the way from top to bottom. It's okay to use bullets or dashes or different forms like checks or whatever else to make things stand out, especially if you have, let's say, 10 certifications or 5. Then you can maybe use bullet points. But try not to have everything be the same. That's why it's nice to spice things up. That's why like the uppercase, bold, underline, that's what I use for like objective, education, experience, special skills. Not for references upon request, but for those major headings, I would typically use bold, uppercase, underline, but then that's the only time I use that. And then underneath, like for the job, you work at Safeway supermarkets, maybe that's bold, and that's it. But Safeway Stores Incorporated, comma, Fremont, California, maybe Fremont, California is non-bold. And then maybe on the right, your dates, you know, you've been there 2015 to present, maybe the dates are italicized, bold, non-bold, but the point I'm making is if you can have different styles of text that's professional looking with white space in between to separate the major areas, it makes it easy for things to pop out. That's just my suggestion. But anyway, in closing, while it's necessary to have a one-page resume, remember that the resume doesn't get you the job. We don't hire resumes, we hire people. And I can't stress that enough. People that can sell themselves and demonstrate they're exactly what we're looking for. And what we're looking for today could be different tomorrow. And you go, how could that be, Steve? Here's the challenge. When you go to an oral board, the questions are the same, but depending on who is on the oral board, everyone's slightly different. And that's the challenging part, is you could go to one, you could be testing for, say, the Seattle Fire Department today. And let's say Seattle is running 10 different interviews at 8 o'clock, 10 different interviews at 8:30. I mean, they have 10 different interview panels of 3 people in each panel. So they've got 3 times 10 panels, 30 interview raters at one time, and 10 candidates in each, one in each room. It's a factory. They're pumping out, 10 an hour, 10 at 8 o'clock, 10 at 8:30, 10 at 9 o'clock. And they got 10 different boards. And here's the challenge. Each board asks the same questions. And you could answer the same questions in the same way at this board and get 100%, but then be in this board and get 90%, or be in that board and get 60% and fail. And you go, but I answered the question the exact same way, right? What was different? The people. Again, we're human beings. We all have different likes and desires. Yes, we're looking for certain things, but the part of the connection part, that's the challenging part, because everyone, there's always a chance each one of us can rub someone the wrong way or come across in an awesome way to somebody else. And that's just human nature. So be yourself, ultimately, be the best you can be, and don't lose sleep. Just be consistent. That's all I can say. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. My contact information, social media footprint. Please connect with me if I can ever be of assistance. So good luck, take care, be well. Until the next episode, we'll see you soon. Have a great day, everybody.